Does it work on, how does that? So to answer your question, it'd probably be like, let's chat a little bit in the beginning, 5 minutes, just to let people know who I am and kind of what we do, what we represent, how long we've been doing it, just build some credibility. And then from there, I can just take over for about 20 minutes or so.
Okay.
And then we can do some light Q&A.
Let me do this. I'll tell you what I had, and then we'll figure out a way to kind of finesse that. Because what I had might be the duplicate of what you're going to go through in your intro.
Okay.
So what I had is
because we've done this before back in, what was it, August, September?
You on the podcast?
Yeah, Kiara and I.
Yeah, I forgot when it was, but it was a few months ago. It was like a month or two ago.
All right, good.
So basically one of the questions was where are we in the process and what has happened so far? The question is, what's the opportunity? The next is one of my questions, and I could probably save this for the Q&A, is what's kind of made you become so interested in this topic?
It's a good one.
Then other was, is it an opportunity or is it the hood? The next is, are opportunity zones for us? Because every time I post something about that, people always say, oh, those aren't to benefit African-American people or whatever their excuses are. Honestly, I think I could probably save these. And what I found is when you do multiple questions, you just pull out more information.
Yeah.
So we'll do exactly what you want to do, which is we'll kind of introduce you and all that stuff. And then you can go over your spiel, and then I'll come in with these questions at the end. I think that's perfect.
All right, cool. Give me 1 sec. I want to change some settings. I got some sound popping in on my end, and I don't want that to distract anything.
You work a full-time job too? You're 100% self-employed?
So I work for a commercial developer.
Nice.
Decided to leave the self-employment world, but we can get into that too. That's a fun story.
Okay. I never know what's too personal. So I never want to cross that line, but everything is helpful to the listeners.
Yeah. No, I appreciate asking. The short story is that I was self-employed doing Charm City Buyers for about 6 months, and then I got tapped because of what we were doing to join a larger commercial developer, a guy who rehabbed and renovated Tide Point, which is the Under Armour factory. He did Fenway Park, which is the Red Sox stadium. He's done some really, really big. He was the largest contractor on the East Coast at one point, huge development projects. So he saw what we were doing. And he was like, yo, I want you on the team.
That's interesting.
So I'm doing some pretty big projects now.
Do you see opportunity to take those skills and then apply it to your own company?
At 150%.
Yeah. I was talking about this on the internet last night. I'm a big Don Peoples fan. And so like we're getting started in residential real estate. We're getting started doing smaller deals. But the goal is always to do something like that. The goal is always to build something on that level where you're doing hotels, where you're doing condo complexes, skyrise type work. So it's like my goal has always been to get to that level. It's just I kind of had to, I guess, crawl before I walked and get some experience, get some years in the game, get some deals behind my belt, and then actually jump into that level. So it's kind of cool that it's like a job is an opportunity to start your own business. And it's also kind of like, I guess, an intern, even if you get paid for it.
And what's even better is that the level of freedom I have. Like I told them off break, I can't work 5 days a week because I have a business. So like,
wow,
like they're cool. Yeah, they're like we understand you're doing your thing. Like just make sure as long as you get your stuff done. I don't get asked any questions when I go out to lunch for 4 hours. I don't get it's just I have meetings. Like that's just what I got to do.
I feel like sometimes when you're an entrepreneur, though, sometimes employers don't like that.
It's very true. Yeah, 90% of employers don't. But when you're working with somebody who is like the best, he gets it. Like he just gets it. You know what I mean? There's no benefit in him watching over my shoulder every single thing I do.
Wow.
There's not enough time. And I've proven myself. I'm a hard worker. I get my stuff done.
Mm,
Um, doing some pretty big projects. So he knows that what I bring to the table.
that's dope. That's dope. Cool. I'm gonna run the intro. I wanted to ask those questions now because I'll probably find a way to put that at the end of the interview.
All right,
And
cool.
I like to think I have a good memory, but sometimes I forget and get caught up in the conversation and forget to look back on important points. Let me find this. This is episode 33.
33. Congratulations on 33.
Oh no, this is actually episode 83. My bad, but I appreciate
Even better.
it. What's your? Can I use your last name or what's your?
Sure. Uqdah, Uqdah. It sounds like book.
DAH.
Or you can just say Charm City Buyers or
What's your nationality?
African American, Black.
Really?
Yeah, brother. Baltimore, born and raised.
It sounds like some island last name.
Yeah, it does. So I'm a Muslim.
Okay, that's dope. Very
Yeah.
dope. Cool. So this is the Todd Capital Millionaire Podcast. This is episode 83. My name is Charles Oglesby, also known as Todd Millionaire Founder, Director, Todd Capital Investment Club. We have over 300 members. We also have the Todd Acquisitions Real Estate Club, which has 6 rental properties, looking to add a ton more next year, just looking to scale and level up all over the country. We've been doing a lot of deals in Michigan, but I think we're going to start looking to just take advantage of other opportunities, which is the theme of this show, around the country, because I feel like with the speed and the size and the backing that we have in this group, we can be doing so much more, not just in the market that we're in currently, but throughout the country, helping people and providing affordable housing, which is the goal here. Make sure you all leave a rating and review, preferably a 5-star review, like, comment. We love getting feedback on the episodes. It helps us curate better episodes. It also is just kind of, it makes us feel good. It makes us feel like we're doing good work over here and helping people. So definitely appreciate that. Thank you guys all for tuning in. The purpose of this podcast is to share the stories of successful African-American business owners and investors so people can hear the stories of successful examples because they exist. We know that business and investing are the true keys to financial success and generational wealth. With us today, we brought back Charm City Buyers. We have one half of Charm City Buyers. His name is Khalil Uqdah. I think I pronounced that right.
Yeah, it's close. It's close. Uqdah.
Uqdah. There we go. This guy is doing some dope stuff. It's so funny because the first time I had a conversation with him, them meaning both, it's like you hear so much, you see the wife so much, but you don't realize how dope the husband is. So he's done a ton of stuff. He's one half of the team, but he also has an MBA. He's also working in commercial real estate. He's worked on some pretty impressive projects, worked with somebody who's been doing some impressive projects in the city of Baltimore, and he manages to do it while also running his business. So what he's going to talk to you guys about today is opportunity zones. This is something that's been kind of buzzing around social media, buzzing around Instagram, buzzing around Twitter. And we want you guys to have the proper information, not misinformation. And so we brought him here to have a real in-depth, raw conversation. So welcome to the show, man.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Todd. Super excited to be here and to be able to share this information. It's so important because it's happening right now. It has been happening right under people's eyes and ears. And it's good that, you want to share the information with your listeners.
Nice. So can you give people a quick rundown of who you are as a person, and then we'll get into talking about real estate?
Yeah, sure. So we started with our residential real estate portfolio. When I say we, I mean my wife, Kiara, and I, Charm City Buyers, in 2012, quickly scaled up through all types of different creative financing methods. If you can think of a creative financing method, we've probably done it. And now we teach people how to do it. So we've got 7 active projects right now that will be for sale projects. We've got over 20 rentals. We provide property management services. We provide construction management services. And now we do this kind of thing over the last 2 years or so, as people have been tapping us and wanting to know more and more. development educational services. So teaching others how to positively impact real estate and positively impact the community. We also, fortunately, have grown to love Baltimore, my home city, born and raised, West Side Glen Oak. Shout out to anybody who's listening over there. And we focus on our next generation of real estate developers through our Next Gen program. It's a 10-week course that teaches you the soup and nuts and everything in between about real estate development.
Man, a lot of power in that introduction. I didn't know you guys were managing 7 projects at the same time. We talked so much about your rental portfolio, but we didn't know that you had current projects going right now. How do you manage that many deals at the same time?
It's crazy how we do it. So first of all, I like to tell everybody off break, like, man, if you want to do community development, this broad scale thing, you got to start with family development, and you got to start with yourself, right? You got to develop yourself. Then you develop your family, then you develop communities. So, I mean, getting married young, getting married early, one of the best decisions of my life. By far, one of the best decisions of my life. And that's
before you go, you're going to talk about why that is, right? Because I'm curious.
Absolutely.
I want to, yeah.
Absolutely. So it's multifold. One, she's just a bomb. Like, she's a pretty dope person. Two, it when I get tired, when she gets tired, one of us can pick up the slack, and that's just kind of nuts and bolts of it. But three, it's like this, right? So Todd, how many hours of sleep on average do you get in the night?
Maybe about 6 or 7.
6 hours of sleep. Okay. Well, we'll go with six hours of sleep. So in a given day, you can put 18 hours of hard work in on a day, right? And you get 6 hours of sleep. We're not including commute and lunch and all that kind of stuff. 18 hard hours of work. Well, Kiera and I, we can put in 36 hours a day of hard work based on those raw numbers, right? Because we wake up talking about it, we go to sleep talking about it. I trust her 100%. She knows everything in and out. She's a 50% across the board. And it's just like we can put in more time than most other people because we're just in it.
I feel like it's so funny because I was listening to Erica Williams and she said that a lot of this stuff is really just a math project. So it's like, what can you do with just you? Now, what can you do if you double that? And the cool thing about it is you guys are building the same company. Another cool thing about it is you're building just one company. Well, you guys are building a bunch of different brands within that company. But one of the points I was making on Twitter once is that if you and your wife work for 2 separate businesses, you can only build one career at 2 separate businesses. But if you're building the same company, then you're building just one successful company. It's a lot easier to build one thing successfully than 2 things independently. And it's like you said, it's like you can compensate when she's not there, but you can't do that on your job. If your wife doesn't want to go to work, she's going to get fired. But on one day, if your wife doesn't want to go to work, and you guys work for the same business, you own the business, it's just, you just fill in for it. It's just business.
Yeah, exactly. So we've got, and it's not just us two. I got to give a shout out and credit to those who support us as well. And they know who they are. I don't have to put them on blast, but administrative support. We've got contractors obviously supporting and helping and trust us and see our vision and what direction we're going in. And it's just a wide range of individuals, attorneys, accountants, the list goes on and on, bankers. It's just a lot of people who believe in us.
Right. And so you said that you start with family development, and then you said you start with, I think, small family development.
The development in general starts with yourself, right? You got to position yourself mentally, physically, financially to be able to do this real estate development stuff. And then after you get yourself right, which I'm not 100% right, I'll tell you, but once you get yourself, pretty close to the way, then you can impact your family, right? We have a small daughter, my wife and I, we can really fixate on the 3 of us and making sure that us 3 are solid. Then we can broaden it even further and say, okay, that we can impact this entire community. We can buy the block, for example, and we can get that done. We can learn about opportunity zones and how the greater impact is going to spread itself across the entire U.S. and small cities from here until 10 years from now. We can do those types of things.
That's dope. That's dope. Let me see. What should we talk about next? I don't know where we should go with this. I don't know if we should talk about more about what you guys are doing, or if you want to feed right into opportunity zones. Well,
Um,
this is what we'll do. Before I go into opportunity zones, I did have a question um,
okay.
just about real estate values, and I think your perspective will help. So the question is this: when I had you guys on here last time, I asked you a question about a current event. That current
Mhm.
event was more social related. This one is more economic related.
Okay.
A lot of people saw the Aisha Selden post that was talking about burr investing and the drop in values and the land in Philadelphia, which she believes is going to kind of trickle down into the property values and then cause a correction in the property values. Are you guys seeing something that would indicate that there is a similar environment in Baltimore? And if so, what's your strategy?
You know, it's funny. Anytime property values increase or decrease, really, it can be because of a wide range of reasons. There's never one reason why it happens,
Mhm.
right? So you can put it all on rising interest rates if you want to. You can put it all on the fact that we are currently, in an economy that has been growing for the last 10 years, and people are assuming that it's going to stagnate a little bit. You can put it all on Aisha's comments as well. But whatever the overall reason is for property values decreasing and fewer buyers being available, I personally I don't focus so much on the cause of it. I focus on what I'm going to do.
So,
Right? What's my strategy immediately? And we do some quick strategy planning and we figure it out. I'll tell you, for example, when Trump got elected, that night, my wife and I, we sat and we said, okay, now what? Right? We can cry and get on Facebook and all that kind of stuff, Instagram, or we can fill out a plan and execute because things are going to shift. And if you're not prepared, you're going to miss the boat.
right, right. I like that. I like that because so many people, what they'll do is they'll find the cause and then they'll say, we found the cause. We found out what did it.
Exactly.
And then you're just like an informed person who hasn't really improved their life. And it's like,
Yeah.
what is the purpose of information if you're not going to use it to impact your life? I like
Yep.
that a lot because I think it applies to not just real estate. It applies to a lot of different things. I mean, as you go through life, you're going to hit bumps in the road. You're going to get a tax bill. So it's like, are you going to look at the tax bill and say we have a tax bill, or are you going to respond and say, well, I need to do this, this, and this to knock out that tax bill and to make sure I don't have that tax bill next year. So I think that's
Exactly.
really dope. And that's
Exactly.
why I liked you on this show because I feel like your mentality is just like, yeah. And I was like, he's a cool guy.
I appreciate it, Todd. Yeah, man. I try to think differently. I used to, being big into NFL and NBA and all that kind of stuff. I don't have time for that stuff anymore.
Right,
I
right.
got a family to raise. I got things to learn. I got communities to impact. Like sacrifices have to be made.
One thing that I think is important because you guys are working on 7 projects now, and I'm not there yet, but what I've realized is the knowledge that I have now about the entire process is a lot more sophisticated than it was when I was just standing from the sidelines. And so I can only imagine where you guys have to be like thought wise, where
Yeah.
you just see things completely different than the podcast listener or the book reader or the person who just casually does this.
Yep.
How have you seen your thought process change from when you first started doing it to now where you guys are doing multiple deals at a time?
Man, I'll tell you, it's night and day. So we'll talk about the beginning first. You get that first project, and you're super excited, right? You go to the closing, you're smiling ear to ear, you celebrate that night, and then you start working hard. And the first time you go to the construction site, and everybody's working hard on all 3 floors, or 4 floors, or 2 floors, and they're looking at you like, "Hey, is this okay? Did I do a good job here?" And you're like, "Oh, that feels good. Oh my goodness, I did it. I'm here. I made it." Right? And then you fast forward 6 years later, like we have, and things have really started to pop off. And those feelings don't come as easily anymore. On top of that, we're at a place where we're so focused on Baltimore, and that it's been our niche, and it's helped us that in the political scene, on the tax credits, on kind of larger scale development opportunities, we're very plugged in, and we're getting increasingly plugged in as we do this every single day, put our 36 hours in every single day. So it's a different mentality where you're not so focused on like enjoying it. You're more focused on, okay, what's next? How am I gonna do this a little bit better next time, or this time even? How can I connect with certain people and plug in? How It's always thinking, it's always strategy. I'll tell you, it's now that we're at a point where we're essentially CEOs, right? We're CEOs of our company, and it's a pretty large scale company. We're growing fast. We're doing some really impactful things. The question is, like, how can we constantly stay at minimum 1 year ahead, right? How can we stay 6 months ahead, 1 year ahead? How can we continue strategically plan? What's the next step? There are so many things happening. This is why I'm not on social media a lot. There's so many back end things happening that like we can't afford for both of us to waste all of our time on social media all the time.
Yeah.
Right? We have to be able to, somebody's got to, both of us at different times, jump on and learn about opportunity zones and become a subject matter expert, so that when the time's right, when Anthony Scaramucci decides he's going to announce a $3 billion fund and his article goes viral, 4 days later, we can put out a 101. 5 days later, we can put out a masterclass, right? Because we've already done the research. We've been studying it because we had the network to tell us this is going to be the next big thing.
Mm-hmm.
You want to know about this before anybody else, before it goes mainstream.
Nice. That's very cool. There's so much that I could ask, and I'm trying to.
Let's jump a little bit into some opportunity zones.
Let's do that. So can you give us an overview, like the I guess what do they call it, the 5,000 overhead view of opportunity zones?
Absolutely. This is a lot of fun for me because I've been studying it for a little over a year, and it's good to finally be able to like unload it and let people know what's going on. So opportunity zones originally start, I'm going to start with some history, then we'll go into what opportunity zones are and how they're structured and how they're going to work, and where we are in current events. And then even we'll talk a little bit about some future activities that will happen over the next few months. So opportunity zones, the original conversation started under the Obama administration. Empowerment zones, there were a few other different types of ideas that popped up. But like anything of this scale, it takes time, right? It takes a few years to talk to the right people, to put the right pro formas and formulas together, to understand the policies and what the long-term impacts will be. It can't just be an overnight thing. But in December of 2017, under the Trump administration, the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, so 2017, signed into law this opportunity zone stuff. And there were two sections of the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act of 2017. The first section, and this isn't critically important, but the first section is 14000Z-1, and the second section is 14000Z-2. Okay, and the first one basically says this is what an opportunity zone is. This is how we're going to define it, right? And then the second section says it's a little bit longer. The first section is about a paragraph. The second section is 5 pages, and it says these are the mechanisms by which an opportunity zone will work, will be funded, will operate. This is how it's going to function, right? 2 distinct sections. That happened in December of 2017. So from December of 2017, holiday season, so we'll really call it January 2018. From January 2018 until March 2018, every governor of every state had until the end of March to determine which of its low-income census tracts would then be qualified as opportunity zones. Yep. And they could only choose 25% of their low-income census tracts. The other 75%, unfortunately, they couldn't make the cut. The only exception is Puerto Rico. And that's important because that's how I initially really got into this opportunity zone stuff. We'll talk about that later. So by March, about 50% of every governor, my governor, your governor, everybody's governor, had chosen their low-income census tracts that would be opportunity zones. There's a 30-day extension to April. By about May, all opportunity zones had been created. and maps started popping out left and right. These are the opportunity zones. Get your opportunity zone map. A lot of misinformation, a lot of incorrect information, because like we all know, things get published really quickly, and everybody wants to be the first one out.
Right.
Right. Fortunately, we've been researching this enough. We've got a list of all 8,700, over 8,700 opportunity zones, a full list of it. Every low-income census tract is in that spreadsheet. And there are two maps that I like particularly. I double-check both of them as well as the list. So there are three different sources to make sure that what I'm looking at is indeed an opportunity zone. And it's so important. And I'll explain why in a second. But people like Anthony Scaramucci, who do a $3 billion opportunity fund, right? Somebody like PNC Bank, it's in the news now. They announced that they've got a $486 million opportunity fund. These things are popping up left and right, and this is a brand new thing, right? There are reasons why people are certainly high net worth individuals and people with large and deep pockets and people who control a lot of money are so interested in this new legislation.
Right.
Let me explain why.
Yeah. That was the next question. I was going to say why.
Yeah. So by May, all of the opportunity zones have been created, right? And what opportunity zones can do is this. Okay, so there's a qualified opportunity zone, and then there's a qualified opportunity fund, right? And what it is you take your capital gains, so money that you earn from selling stock, selling real estate, your capital gains. It's not money that you earn from a paycheck or money you earn from wholesaling, for example, fees and things. No, it has to be something.
Why is that important? Why capital gains and why not just money that they have on the sidelines?
Really good question. Two reasons. One, make no mistake about it, this is a policy that's intended for the rich to get richer. Right. And a lot of people in lower tax brackets don't have capital gains. They don't have money that can sit and invest over and over and for years or months, and then they can sell it and realize those gains, because a lot of people are paycheck to paycheck. Mm-hmm. Right. The second reason is because, and this, thank you for asking this question, it's super important, is because in a growth economy over the last 10 or so years, right, the stock market has increased in value every year. People have been realizing that their stocks are increasing in prices. And when that happens, nobody wants to sell it, right? If I put $10 million into a stock and it jumps up to 11 million and then 12.3 million and then 14 million, I'm not going to sell. I'm going to keep riding that wave, right? Year after year. So after a while, there's a lot of money just sitting on paper. Mm-hmm. And the federal government, this is a federal policy. Opportunity zones are a federal policy. It's not a state policy. The federal government looks at that and they say, wait a second. We need money to be put towards job creation. We need money to be put towards infrastructure, towards roads, towards schools and buildings and real estate and all these different things. So over the course of these 10 past years, it's been estimated $6.1 trillion is just sitting in stocks. That's just stocks, right? We're not talking real estate. We're not talking all these other things. Yeah. Stocks alone, $6.1 trillion. So it's important that it's capital gains because the federal government wants to provide an incentive for people to sell those stocks and realize those gains and then put that money to work, right? And the best way to provide any type of incentive to a wealthy person, make them more money.
Make more money. It's interesting because before they were lowering taxes to encourage people to invest into the stock market. So they would cut capital gains taxes and they would specifically cut long-term capital gains taxes. And so now they're saying, hey, all right, now let's go ahead and let's put that money to work over here.
Right.
How they kind of direct things.
The first strategy worked, right? Now it's time to use that money for the second strategy.
Honestly, if that's any indication of how well that strategy worked, it could be an indication of how well the opportunity zone strategy works.
Yeah. So what happens is there's $6.1 trillion in the stock market. The federal government wants to provide this incentive, right? So opportunity zones, how it works is that to help people sell their stocks and realize those gains, they've got to provide tax breaks, tax shelters, tax relief. so that people actually do this thing. So the program works so that when you realize your gains, when you sell your stocks, off break, as long as you put that money that you realize now into an opportunity fund, a qualified opportunity fund, you get to defer your capital gains taxes. You don't have to pay any capital gains on that money that you just made, right? If you keep it in the fund for 5 years, then you get a 10% step up in your tax basis. And what that basically means is that you pay taxes on 10%.
90%, and then 80%, and then 70%.
Exactly. So Todd, you get it. I'm so happy. Listeners, I want to make sure that everybody understands this. So I'm going to take it very, very slow, okay? 10% step up in your basis. You only pay taxes on 90% of it, okay? If you keep it in for 7 years, keep that opportunity, that capital gains into your fund for 7 years, then you only pay taxes on 85% of the money, right? So 15% of your money, you don't have to pay taxes on. And that's great. But the real bang for the buck is if you keep it in a fund for 10 or more years, then you don't have to pay capital gains taxes on any of it. Federal capital gains taxes. You don't have to pay on any of it. So there's an initial deferral. If you sell after 5 years, you sell your interest in this fund and you get that money back. You pay taxes on 90% of it. 7 years, 85%. 10 years, you don't have to pay on any of it. Additionally, if the money you put into that fund invest in a property or a business, qualified opportunity zone property or qualified opportunity zone business, and it appreciates in value, you don't have to pay capital gains taxes, federal capital gains taxes on that appreciation either. So it really is a remarkable program. We're going to do a quick example because I know I just spit a lot of information and some people are, audio visual learners and those types of things. If I had a whiteboard, I would hook you up. But that's okay. We can use some pretty straightforward numbers. So let's say somebody buys a stock for $50,000 and they sell it for $150,000. Right? Your Google stock appreciated. You've got $100,000 of capital gains. You have a pen?
Oh, we could do it right here. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh man. All right. What's the number again?
All right, so let's go with $100,000. You've got $100,000 in capital gains.
All right, 100.
Perfect. So then there's a immediate mark where there's a deferral. If you could also write capital gains taxes are typically somewhere between 15% and 35%.
So then that makes your 10 to 15%.
Yep. So then there's a 5-year mark, there's a 7-year mark, and then there's a 10+ year mark. And you can go straight down on those. Yeah. Just like that. So if you sell your interest, if you realize those gains, you put it into a qualified fund, and you sell your interest in that fund in 5 years, then you have to pay taxes on 90% of it for the 5-year mark. So $90,000. Yep. If you sell it in 7 years, then you have to pay taxes on $85,000.
85.
Yep. And if you sell it after 10 years, then you don't have to pay taxes, capital gains taxes on it.
So basically, it's a free $100,000.
It's a free $100,000. And if that fund happens to invest in the next tech startup or a real estate play that's going to boom over the next couple of years and it's worth $1 million, you don't have to pay capital gains taxes on that either.
So it's the 100K, but it's going like this.
Mm-hmm.
So if that 100K turns to $500,000 and you hold it for 5 years, you're paying 90% of the $500,000.
Exactly.
So you get 10% of $500,000 for free.
Exactly. So you get $50,000 tax free. You're paying taxes on $450,000 in that example.
Nice.
Yep.
Interesting.
Exactly. So it's really a huge incentive for people to sell their stocks, realize their gains, put those gains into qualified opportunity funds, and let that money sit.
Yeah.
Yep.
How does this affect people that live in those communities?
Really good question. So when I look at the maps, and I look at them pretty often at this point. I look at them and they're all low income census tracts, right? They're the 25% low income census tracts. A lot of governors have selected their lowest income census tracts. Other governors have said, okay, I know of different projects that happen to be in these census tracts. Let me choose those so we can funnel money into those. Either way, in 10 years, those are not going to be low income census tracts.
Right.
Because that's where that $6.1 trillion is coming. If you live in an opportunity zone, if your family, your friends, somebody lives in an opportunity zone, who you know, there's going to be an increase in that property value over the next 10 years, because that $6.1 trillion is coming.
Yeah. So I've looked at an opportunity zone map because we own multiple properties, and I was pissed off because none of our properties landed in the opportunity zone.
But that's okay.
And that's what my question, is like, how does that affect people who are close to an opportunity zone but aren't in one?
Same thing. If you live adjacent to one, you're going to get some residual effect.
Right.
And what we're trying to do here at Charm City Buyers is equip people with the knowledge and the information to help them as this stuff starts to happen and continues to happen. So we're getting tapped by people who want to start investing in Baltimore, and they're like, look, I've got a fund, I've already started. I've got between $3 million and $25 million to deploy in projects. Where are the projects, right? And if we know that fund is looking at specific zip codes, we can let people know, like, hey, your zip code is about to get a lot of money coming in, right? We know somebody who literally said, I want to invest in this zip code specifically, right? So people can start doing things like filling out paperwork for the homestead tax credit, which is a tax credit that most states have now that will protect your property from a sudden increase in property taxes. Over 5 years, over 10 years, it really depends on where you live. But going from $500 on a fixed income, older couple, mom and dad, whatever, in property taxes up to $5,000, that's forcing people to move out and transition into different housing. Mm-hmm. This program will help you incrementally, 500, 1,000, 1,500, 2,000 over the course of a number of years, so that you can adjust to this new property tax. And there are so many different tax incentives that help people. There's renters tax incentives. There's so many different tax incentives, and we try to share as much as possible through our platform and through the information that we're gathering to help people navigate that. That's why we're two of us, man. We got to be in the backgrounds learning this stuff so we can spread it.
Yep. How does somebody create an opportunity zone fund?
Great question. So people have announced that they have created opportunity funds. And let me get back to the timeline in a second. But to answer your question, the paperwork isn't ready yet. Nobody can officially create an opportunity fund yet because the documents from the Fed side, from Treasury or SEC, it's not done yet. There are draft forms available, and I'm happy to share those for anybody who's interested jumping on our platform again. But there are no finalized versions. So let me get back to the timeline a bit. Sorry about that. In May, every governor decided, okay, these are our 25% low income census tracts. These are opportunity funds, period. Opportunity zones, excuse me, period. In June of 2018, PNC Bank, early adopter, very early. I'm sure you're business savvy. There's the bell curve of people who adopt new trends, right? Whether it's the iPhone or opportunity zones. Early adopters are in the beginning of the bell curve, a very small percentage of people. Then there's the early majority who it's a large chunk of people, and they're early. Then there's the late majority, and then there's the laggards, right? And I don't mean to cover my face, but you get the bell curve.
It's kind of like Tesla.
Yeah. So PNC was an early adopter. In June of 2018, this stuff had just come out really 6 months ago. They sold a bunch of stock, and they started a $486 million opportunity fund. They announced it here at the DHCD, Department of Community Development in Maryland, a conference that I went to, Opportunity Zone Conference, and they were all excited about it, and everybody in the crowd was excited too. That was the first and the largest fund that I had heard of at the time. I served on an Opportunity Zone panel to help people understand it. I've had a colleague go down to the New Orleans conference that was in the fall of this year, where she met with 1,000 people who are all interested, from people who work in small family offices who control a lot of money to CDEs, which are community development entities. Yep. Everybody who really attends the New Market Tax Credit conferences, they were here and more.
Read about those.
That about 900 of them were really business-focused, money-focused people, bottom line focused people, small family offices, hedge funds, REITs, those types of industries. She said about 100 of them were CDEs, community development entities, those who were focused on the doing good part of the opportunity zone. So anyway, that all stuff happened in the summer of 2018 into the early fall of 2018, and everybody was wondering, when are the regulations going to come out? We need updated regulations to better understand the business side of it, because it's not just a real estate play, it's a business play also. If you're starting a business, you want to start in the opportunity zone. We need to better understand what SIN businesses are. As defined currently, SIN businesses are ineligible for opportunity funds, just like they're ineligible for new market tax credit funding. And under new market tax credit, SIN businesses are things like anything that's main revenue stream is gambling, anything that you're buying alcohol for consumption off-site. So if you're a liquor store or a packaged goods stores, wherever you are, whatever they call them, but a bar could is consumption on site, so that doesn't count as a SIN business. A brewery doesn't count. Private golf course, massage parlors, public golf courses, all those types of things are SIN businesses. We're waiting right now to figure out whether cannabis is going to be considered a SIN business, whether it's ineligible or eligible for opportunity zone funding. Anyway, so everybody was wondering, where are the updated regulations? We need to know where the documents are, where we need to fill out, what's going on, blah, 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 blah. I'll tell you, in September of 2018, they hadn't even staffed this department, right? That's how new it was. That's how little red tape there was. Very, very much a money-making money policy. So on October the 19th of 2018, the updated regulations came out. 74-page document that better explain how this opportunity zone thing would work and operate. But it still didn't give all of the picture, right? It still had a lot of questions. So, October 19th, it came out. There's a 60-day window where professionals and experts and SMEs, subject matter experts, can analyze it, understand it, and ask questions. And there's going to be a public hearing in DC. I'm going to be there January the 10th to ask all questions, to hear questions being asked, so that those who created the legislation can go back, take in the general public's wants and needs, and draft them into a final regulation document, which is to come out in the second quarter of 2019. So like there's a whole process and different things happening. It's happening fast. I'll tell you, for the policy to come out in December, and for a large international bank like PNC 6 months later to say that they're going to fund it, almost $500 million, like it's happening.
So it sounds like when you made reference to PNC and the bell curve, that it's your, I guess, projection that we're going to see more and more banks come online and start to participate.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yep, no doubt about it. More banks will come online. More private firms will come online. There's little regulation around this. Some of the draft documents to fill out to say, yes, I have a qualified opportunity fund, 2-page document, right? I've got the draft. I've read it. I've looked at it. There are instructions. There's very little red tape. So a large bank can do it. A private equity firm can do it. If you've got capital gains yourself, you could probably form a fund as a tax shelter. There's all kind of ways to do it. And we explain how to do it in our masterclass, our Opportunity Zone masterclass. We have all the documents, the map links. We've got the 8,700 opportunity zones on a spreadsheet. We've got all the draft documents, all the regulation documents, both those sections that I referenced earlier. And we share all that information along with updated opportunity funds as we learn about them. So if you yourself are looking for opportunity zone funding to come and inject into a property, we'll share that information. If you're just curious, hey, I live in an opportunity zone, I just want to know when a fund is going to come up and when it's going to impact me so I can start filling out this homestead tax credit and all this kind of stuff. We share that information too. It's really an exciting time for economy. And I know you're dying to ask a question. I'm going to wrap it up.
It's interesting that you say that, but yeah, it finally clicked what you were getting at with homestead and how it connects to opportunity zones.
Got it. Yes. Because when that $6.1 trillion comes into somebody's backyard, they better have done their paperwork so that as their property value goes up, they can handle that increase in property taxes.
Right.
By filling out forms like the homestead tax credit form.
Nice.
Yeah, it's an exciting time, man. We're looking at kind of what's happening with interest rates rising, and in June there was a record low in recent history, and recent being the last couple of years, in home sales, and that kind of startled people for a second. But with this money coming in from the private sector, it might keep the economy propped up, depending on how many people sell and realize their gains and put it into opportunity funds. There's a very large chance that this dip or this market correction is less substantial than we're all predicting.
One of the interesting things, I had this conversation with Aisha when she was out here, and I told her, she was like, why are you investing in Michigan? And I told her, because I think that a lot of these areas are overvalued. And I think that what's going to happen is people are going to have to find value somewhere, because you can't make money in California, in my opinion, and other people's opinions. You can't make money in California. You, for the most part, can't make money in DC. People who made money in DC are now looking for opportunities outside of DC.
Yep. So
then opportunity zone comes along, and it causes people to have to, because the thing about capital gains is you don't get capital gains unless you sell. Selling creates reduction in value because supply,
right?
Well, that also, yeah. So it's kind of interesting because you're going to start to see what we're seeing in the stock market, where it's a sell-off, and so people are selling substantially, which then causes a drop in value, but creates a buying opportunity for people who can kind of recognize that buying opportunity. So then it props it up, like what you were saying. So it kind of like balances itself out.
Right. And that's what Kiara asked me the other day, that exact question. Like, hey, so, I get that money's going to come into these low-income census tracts and prop things up, but we got to think about what's going to happen to the stock market, right? That exact question.
Right.
Nobody really knows quite sure what's going to happen. Yeah. It all depends on how many sales happen.
Yeah. I always tell people, like, the goal is to just keep buying. Like, if the stocks fall, just keep buying and keep buying it down, because that's the buying opportunity that you've been waiting for. Everybody, they say buy low, and then when you get the low opportunity, then they're like, it might go lower. And so it's like, well, buy it anyway. And then if it goes lower, buy some more of that.
Yep, exactly.
So I want to run through these questions, and it's so funny because I think the question, when you started talking about homesteads, and the opportunity zone, it actually leads right into a question. So I'm going to go with that one, and then I'll circle back. But the question is, I have a home that's in an opportunity zone. What should I do?
Great question. So my first response would be, is it an investment property or is it your primary home? My next question would be, if it is your primary home, we can kind of go through that path of, do those documents, the homestead tax credit, look into those ways of protecting yourself, and maybe you're ready to move, right? And if you are, that's okay. Wait a couple of years when your property value shoots up, and then get ready to sell. If it's an investment property, then you want to start learning about where the funds are, because pretty soon bankers, private lenders, everybody's going to start saying, okay, the first question when you go to ask for a loan for a real estate development play is going to be, are you in an opportunity zone? And if you can answer yes, great, excellent, we can help you. If you answer no, we can still help you, but that whole thing. So if it's an investment property, my suggestion would be to find a local opportunity zone, a qualified opportunity fund, find a qualified opportunity fund and, you know, talk to them about your investment opportunity and find a way to make it work for them and for you and develop that property.
Nice. Yeah, because a lot of people might have like grandparents who are in an opportunity zone.
Yep.
And so this information would help them help their grandparents. I mean, my grandma lives in Georgia and she bought this house maybe about 20 years ago. She paid like close to nothing, like 40 grand for the house. And now you look up and there's all these properties that are starting to kind of be revitalized.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, I need to figure out like, what am I going to do to help her? And I was literally thinking about the whole property tax things that happened. Like now these homes are selling for like 200, 250, which could ultimately affect her property taxes, which could at 40 grand be more than her mortgage.
Right. Seriously. I mean, it's scary. It's scary how quickly that type of stuff can happen. And it's your grandparents, it's other people's grandparents, it's a whole generation of people who could be impacted by this.
Right.
We want to make sure.
That's why this is so important. I mean, there's so many things why it's important, but it's like you hate to be in a situation where some legislation pops up and then your grandma gets her house taken. And then 15 years later, we start dissecting it and figuring out like, oh, that's what they did. It's like, it's too late then. You need
too late. There's another policy that's on the rise at that point.
Right. And that's why when you said that you guys try to stay a year ahead, that was so profound because so many of us are aiming to start 2019, but it seems like your head's already in 2020.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. We're looking at ways to start a fund. We're looking at ways with some capital gains because we've got these 7 active projects, right? So we have to sell all of them and then realize those gains, put them into a fund, tell other people about it some more so we can really accumulate a substantial fund. I mean, there are all types of different things that are on the table at this point. We're a year ahead at this point.
Yeah. And I think that's so dope because if you really do the ROI math, once you factor in flips into not having to pay capital gains tax on those flips, then putting it into another likely flip or rehab project, your ROI is off the charts.
Exactly. Now that brings up a really good point. Now there are questions, and I'm sure this will come up during the public hearing on January 10th. They haven't quite decided how flips will operate. I'm sure a lot of people are going to ask and push for flips to be part of it. But again, the money has to sit for 10 years to really gain the benefit. You do a flip in 6 months, three months, you know, it's fast money. It doesn't sit for long enough. I think the goal and what I'm hearing about is that the goal is going to be for a business to capital gains to be realized, it to be put into a fund, the fund deploy the money into a business, and that business deploys money into a flip. And when that flip sells, the money comes back to that business over and over again. And that will be, I think that's going to be where people are going to push for the legislation to approve flips.
Wow.
As long as it goes back and forth into a qualified operating business that's established in an opportunity zone. But again, there's no regulation around it yet. There's no regulation around that. Cannabis, operating businesses in general it's very loose. What's being talked about and how it's being monitored and defined. And that's largely because the policy was created by real estate developers, right? So they're gonna figure their side out first. But the goal is to create businesses that create jobs in these low-income census tracts so that economy in those low-income census tracts can spur and the people can thrive.
Yeah, I think this is very important because it speaks to a lot of issues in America. It speaks to how the major cities have been doing well in this economy, whereas like a lot of the overlooked areas have kind of gone to nothing. And so people were looking for a solution, like how can we solve this gap between the ultra wealthy 1% and then the not so wealthy? And I think it's also important because, I mean, maybe it'll help create that middle class that we've been lacking for so long. So it's like, yeah, the low income area is not going to exist. And that's because it's been turned into a middle class neighborhood again.
Yeah. And, you know, if that's what happens, great. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. If all these low income census tracts then become moderate income census tracts, moderate to high income census tracts, depending on where they are. And it's across the board. It's every state.
Yeah.
Puerto Rico is the only exception. And that's how I got introduced to the opportunity zones initially. I remember, so I had a family member who shortly after the two hurricanes in 2017, August and September of 2017, she went down and she started to volunteer heavily to the point where she was contacted by FEMA and they offered her a position. And her role was to essentially take federal money and figure out a way to provide it to the local Puerto Ricans who needed to rebuild their businesses, rebuild their houses, rebuild their lives.
Mm-hmm.
And in speaking with her pretty frequently and learning about how the island was navigating its own difficulties and its troubles, I started to really fall in love with the island to the point where I'm like, man, we need to buy a property here. Like, we need to start investing here. So Kiera and I went down and spent a week, and we talked to architects, and we met with former developers, and we started to really pick and probe at the island. Well, then I recently found out this opportunity zone stuff, and then looking at it and the 25% and everything, except Puerto Rico being 100%, literally 100% of the
That's
local
crazy.
tracts in Puerto Rico are qualified opportunity zones.
Wow.
That's the exact reaction I had. It's like, wow. And I was like, wait a second, why? Why, right? So you dig a lot deeper, and the fiscal plan came out in April of 2018 for Puerto Rico. It's this 250-page document that explains from healthcare to schools to everything else in between, what the island plans to do over the next 5 to 10 years to correct what's going on there. That coupled with 100% opportunity zones, I was like, wow, this is like a no-brainer. It makes a lot of sense at this point. And then I just dove so deep into opportunity zones.
Yeah.
So while Kiera was pushing the brand and growing the followers, and both her and I were still navigating the rentals and the flips and things and the day-to-day things. But while she was in the front end doing a lot of social media, I was in the back end doing a lot of research.
Right.
So we could prepare ourselves for these next couple of things. And it's cyclical. I'll tell you, her and I say it to each other all the time. If I'm tired today and she's got a ton of energy, great. That's perfect. We never hate on each other. I'm like, beautiful. Do your thing. I love you. Mwah. Because next week, you're going to be tired and I'm going to have a lot of energy, and I've got to go back and do all this kind of stuff. So right now with opportunity zones popping up, I can be more in the front of social media and the spotlight and everything. And there may be another thing that she's researching right now and getting to know and learning and grooming, so that when it's time, she can come out and do some amazing things and talk about it and share the knowledge.
I feel like it's the ultimate hack. And California, it's way different. And so like, I'll make this point about like how you don't see a lot of like married couples in California. Like, I always tell people, like, just in my mom's side of the family alone, like most of my cousins aren't married. And I feel like we don't struggle from necessarily like poverty. We struggle from a lack of teamwork. You have that team, you ultimately win. So that's my one point, because I mean, Charm City Buyers, you guys are doing major things. The next thing is about Puerto Rico. I spotted the opportunity in Puerto Rico when I was out there, I think 3 years ago.
Okay, nice.
We were on the beach and we were at the Marriott. And then I'm hoping that you know what I'm talking about when I explain this. I walked like 2 hotels down, and there is this just like vacant hotel.
Yes.
And I was like, I need that. And that's my hotel. That's what I want. And so I brought the opportunity because I work in a family office, and I told the guy there, I was like, hey, I want to turn this into a hotel. Let's do it. And he's like, I'm not investing in Puerto Rico. I'm not investing in Puerto Rico. But the same guy is the person who introduced me to opportunity zones. He said, hey, go research this, go look at this. But to learn that the whole island, because that's one thing that's kind of disheartening to me, is hearing about the greatness and then going and looking and seeing that none of my properties are inside of an opportunity zone. So then to know that the whole island is there, I think that's huge. I think there's a ton of opportunity, but one of the things, the question I'm going to ask you, which might kind of, you can answer from your own experience, is sometimes when you spot an opportunity, first and foremost, it's not going to be obvious to the average person. The second is sometimes you might have to wait. How have you guys experience that in investing in Baltimore? Because I mean, you guys are doing properties that are complete gut rehab. So obviously it's a property that other people are overlooking, and that you
Mhm.
guys use that knowledge of what could be there to be successful in what you're doing.
Yeah, no, that's a very good question, and it's I mean, I could say it's an incredible vision. Kiera, one of her really powerful positive traits when it comes specifically to real estate development is that she is phenomenal at finding the deals. I mean, she is really good at it. I'm nowhere near as good as she is. She looks at it, she does the numbers, she has the insight, she finds it, and she's like, this is the one. So every deal we found, she's found. I think I found one, and it was almost a dud. So that's where she's really strong. So finding the deals in Baltimore can be a little tricky, and I'll tell you. So Baltimore was once a 1 million person city. That was the population. So they had houses to support 1 million people. Well, today we've got about 620,000 people. So there are literally not enough people for the housing, right? So you've got to be very careful. There's a ton of blighted properties. You can get a property for $1,000, $5,000, but you got to be very, very careful. So um, finding the properties, Kiara is really good at, and then developing and moving the properties, whether that's rental or sale. We just use who we are, right? We're young, we're African American, we're ambitious, we got a kid, we're married, right? We have this whole thing going, which I love it because it's authentic, and then other people love it because people want it too, right? It's part of the American dream. You own a house, you own a business, you're married, you have kids, et cetera, et cetera. And we tell our story, right? And that's part of what we're gearing up for 2019, being able to more formalize our developer story, right? In a way that says, hey, this is us. This is what we're about. We love giving back to kids and paying forward. We love educating people on what we're doing and how they can do it. We're selfless with what we share. And people look at that and they say, okay, do I want to buy this house next door, or do I want to buy this person's house who is pushing for a positive, a greater Baltimore? I think it's a no-brainer at that point. So that's kind of our niche, where we excel. Is that if we happen to find a house that's in a not so great area, we can tell our story and we can hopefully attract a renter, a buyer, an investor, some private money, all those different types of things. And we've been doing this since we started. I mean, that's how we grew. We told our story over and over and over, and we heard a lot of no's, but then we got some yeses. And fast forward, and here we are. And I want to make one quick clarification with Puerto Rico. So 100% of its low-income census tracts are in opportunity zone. Right?
Okay.
There are still a few moderate and high-income census tracts in the island.
So I probably can't get my hotel in the opportunity zone.
You'd be surprised what's an opportunity zone.
It'll be nice too.
If the governor is looking at it and they say, we want a lot of money, $6.1 trillion to go along this waterfront. So like the Baltimore Harbor, there's a lot of the Baltimore Harbor that's in an opportunity zone because the governor wants the Baltimore Harbor developed.
Yeah.
Right? And it happens to be a low income census tract too. It's a win-win for everybody.
Right.
10 years later, there's going to be all kind of bars and co-working spaces and restaurants and who knows what else.
Pretty sure the governor had some help in identifying these tracts.
I'm pretty sure there are some very powerful business leaders and community leaders who have written strongly worded letters to encourage governors of every state to create their specific project in an opportunity zone.
What caused you to draw so much interest in the opportunity zone topic?
Puerto Rico. That was a big piece of it. Puerto Rico was a big piece of it. And then just like hearing about it, the universe. I mean, I hate to go really deep and philosophical, but when the universe presents things to me multiple times, I pay attention. So like in the same week almost, Puerto Rico came up, opportunity zone, Puerto Rico, okay. And then somebody else had mentioned it, a guy named Michael out of New York had mentioned if I had known anything about it, and I started to research it. And then I just dove all the way in. Although I wanted to learn everything about it. It's new, so I was like, okay, now's the time to get in. And my goal with our master class is to get people who purchase it before January 10th, 100% up to date. Like they're going to know everything there is to know about it until now. And then as we update the masterclass after January 10th, we'll provide an update. When the new regulations come out again in the second quarter of 2019, we'll provide an update and we'll keep people updated on what's going on. And I just wanted a quick shout out to you. Thank you for having me on. We're so happy to be able to extend a 30% discount to anybody who listens to this podcast if they're interested in purchasing the masterclass. I think you have a link that you'll share for anybody who does purchase that masterclass.
I do. Awesome. Yeah, that's how we'll connect people to that, is that link, which will be in the show notes. So look out for that, guys. A lot of people,
I got interested in opportunity zones through Puerto Rico and then just diving all the way in.
A lot of people, when they hear about low income, they call it the hood. But it's also called an opportunity. So my question is it an opportunity or is it the hood?
Really good question. It can be seen as both. In the state of Maryland, and I want to get this right, there are 149 opportunity zones, the entire state. The state of Texas, there are over 600 opportunity zones. So that just kind of gives you an idea of scalability. But in Maryland, there's 149 opportunity zones. In Baltimore City, there are 47 opportunity zones. So we've got about a third of all the opportunity zones in the entire state. But there are still some areas I drive around and I see so many blighted properties. I'm like, there's no way this is not in an opportunity zone. And it's not, right? It really depends on who the governor is at that time and how they choose which low-income census tracts were going to be designated as opportunity zones. The legislation says that the opportunity zones that have already been chosen are not going to change for the next 10 years. Right? Those are the zones. That's it. There's no switching out and swapping and anything unless additional legislation comes out that allows for it. At this point, for the next 10 years, these are the zones, period. So there are some areas, back to your question, there are some quote unquote hoods that are not opportunity zones. There are some places where you would not expect opportunity zones to be currently opportunity zones because they are low income census tracts and everything in between. So, yes, hoods, opportunity are one and the same. No, hoods and opportunity are not one and the same. It really depends on which census tract.
So before this interview, I listened to a podcast because I wanted to kind of have more information about opportunity zones. And they gave this example, and they were basically saying that one big reason for designating places opportunity zones is because a lot of people don't want to be the only investor in that community. But if you designated an opportunity zone, then that's going to allow people to go in there and change the entire community versus just picking off a map saying, this looks good, this zip code looks good, this zip code looks good. So I think that's it could be helpful to everybody because then, like you said, you have that derivative effect.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Yes, absolutely. If you get critical mass in one area, you can certainly change that area. You get critical mass financially, critical mass in terms of vision and knowledge. You can change that area in a way that one person or one company or one group wouldn't be able to do.
Right.
And what often happens with these types of, before opportunity zones, a developer would come in and they do a large building, and that's all they would have the bandwidth for.
Yeah.
And smaller developers would come in and do the houses around that building, right, and build it out, and that's again critical mass. Now that gives the chance for developers to come in with multiple people, small or large, and say, hey, we're gonna attack this zip code. Yeah. We've got opportunity zone funding to our advantage. We've got new market tax credit funding to our advantage. We've got federal historic tax credit funding to our advantage. We got state historic tax credit. We may have some LIHTC housing, like all these different things to provide that critical mass, that big lift, so that the capital stack is as full as possible. There's very little equity, and people can really transform areas.
Man, I feel like we've asked all the questions in some form. I don't want to hold you, but if there's anything you want to leave the listeners with, what would those things be?
Biggest thing I would leave the listeners with is to be prepared. Do not sit on the sidelines. Do not wait this thing out. Do not wait for it to be a problem before you start to act. Be prepared, get your knowledge up, research Google. If you don't buy the master class, if you don't decide to join the master class, then join something, learn something about it so that you're ready. But look at the masterclass as an option. Click on the link, scroll through the different things that we're going to talk about. We go through the history, obviously. We want everybody to have that base understanding of what opportunity zones are. We go through different funding structures. We go through all of the documents, including the maps and everything that you need if you want to learn more about opportunity zones and you want to form one yourself. Opportunity fund. We go through how opportunity funds couple with new market tax credits, how opportunity funds couple with historic tax credits for those who are a little more advanced in their real estate development journey, opportunity zones and live tech, opportunity zones, and all these different incentive programs. We go through kind of everything soup to nuts about opportunity zones, and it's a constantly evolving thing. So the price of the program, the masterclass, is going to increase because I'm going to have to continually do work and update it and add things to it. So if you lock it in now, you're locked in. You don't have to worry about it. You get those updates as they come on a very regular basis. You get the 30% discount if you use the Todd Millionaire code. The code is millionaire. Again, the code is millionaire with an M. My Baltimore accent sometimes escapes me. But for those who are listening, jump into that masterclass. I want to educate you so that you can educate your friends and your family, and that they're all protected and ready for what's already happening.
So to kind of tag on to that, I think that it's very important to invest in people who have already done the work. A lot of times people will invest in college and they'll invest in people who are going to teach you how to build a business, but they've never built a business. Well, Charm City Buyers has already built a business. And another thing that I think is really important is a lot of times people are looking for that mentor and they're looking to send a DM and get all their answers. People are more willing to work with you if you've invested in yourself and you've also invested into their products. And so if you have a question, I do it all the time. If somebody's worked with me, I'm going to answer their questions, and it can come in any form. It can come through a DM, it can come through a group chat, it can come through whatever. And I think that if you guys want access to them, invest in that access. So another thing that I think is really important is you're going to get probably 10 times the value of what you're paying for this course. And you're likely going to make your money back a lot faster than you would think you will. So I think that there's just so much value in investing in courses. That's one thing I'm looking to do. I'm looking to invest in the Hood Estates trucking course. I'm looking to invest in, I've already invested in the six-figure side hustle course. So I'm putting my business profits back into my education so that I can double up my business profits. And I think that you guys should be doing the same.
Awesome.
Where can people find you personally, and where can they find the class?
Absolutely. If you click the link that's going to be in the show notes, you can get straight to the class. You can find us on our website, charmcitybuyers.com. We're on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, all as Charm City Buyers. Very easy, very clean. Charm City Buyers, everything.
Nice, nice. So this has been episode number 83. My name is Charles Oglesby. If you guys are interested in joining either of our investment clubs, and one day the Tide Capital Opportunity Zone Fund, we're definitely going to make it happen. If we're investing in the hood, we might as well leverage some tax while we do it.
Yeah, man, absolutely.
You can email us at membership@capitaltide.com. You can also find us on the website, www.capitaltide.com. My name is Charles Oglesby, also known as Top Millionaire, signing off. Cool.